I'm Sari Kimbell, and I've done just about everything in the food industry. I have helped hundreds of packaged food business entrepreneurs, and now I want to help you make your delicious dream a reality. Whether you want to be successful at farmers markets, online, or wholesale onto store shelves, food business success is your secret ingredient. I will show you how to avoid an expensive hobby and instead run a profitable food business. Now let's jump in. All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This one's a really fun one. I'm really excited to introduce you to Sara and have a conversation with her. There were a few delays and whatnot in our Zoom recording, but I think I got them all fixed in post-editing. So it should be high quality. If there's any little glitches, it's not a problem. Just keep listening. The content is amazing. Sara Lemmon, yes, that's her real name, is a former middle school teacher and a mom of three turned kombucha brewer. Sara has found wellness and a sense of community in Unfamiliar. She is the owner of Third Bird Kombucha. Sara sets out to craft the most drinkable kombucha that appeals to the youngest birdies in the flock, to those who are young at heart. Sara describes herself as the brewer and doer of Third Bird Kombucha. So welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much for having me.
So fun. So you and I have been working together now for about 4 months. I think we just wrapped up our coaching package, which has been so fun to be part of this journey. Yeah, I love your story. It's like, and I was a former middle school teacher too. So we share that in common.
Yes, us teachers, we got to stick together, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a journey, right? So it honestly started in sort of a place of not knowing and feeling kind of lost. My son was experiencing a lot of GI issues and sensory processing issues, which manifested in a lot of different ways, and it just affected our quality of life as a family. Taking him outside was hard. I had a bag of just changes of clothes because I knew he would be throwing up on me. His sisters had a hard time engaging with him because they're like, well, he's going to scream and cry and it's all going to become a thing. And when things don't make sense to me, I just started doing a ton of research, and so much was coming back to the brain gut and how important it is. If you have a healthy gut, you can have a healthy brain, you can have a healthy body. And my husband, my dear husband, brewed kombucha, and I thought it was absolutely disgusting. I thought it was the grossest thing in the whole wide world. He kept it in a plastic fish tank above our stove, and he would take it like a shot every day. And I thought he was trying to kill himself slowly because of the madness of having 3 children at home. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I had kombucha before, it was a one-off thing, something I'd buy, if I was at the grocery store or at a deli and I didn't want another sparkle water or sweet tea or something, so I'd grab it. I never really knocked my socks off. I was like, oh, and then seeing my husband take it, I was like, ugh. However, I decided to revisit it based on the research that I was doing with Silas, my third bird. And the stuff I was finding in the store had a ton of sugar. I didn't know how long it was sitting out on the shelf, so it could be fermenting for a really long time. It had ingredients that I didn't necessarily want him to have, or it was in a can. And as a mom, cans are the worst because the moment your kid opens a can, you're like, well, you're going to take 2 sips, and now that whole thing is wrecked. And so it wasn't practical.
I did not think about that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The number of cans that end up, and you're just I can't deal with this. So I figured I could start brewing myself. And the reason we went with kombucha, or I did, was because at the time, Silas was really only having a liquid diet. And I was like, well, I'm going to try. Whatever I'm doing, it's got to be better than what my husband's brewing right now. And The crazy thing is that, I'm a 40-year-old woman. I'm proud to admit it.
Heck
And
yeah.
heck yeah. And, I had spent so much of my life being a people pleaser, like a yes, whatever you need. Okay, I got you. And, you're a mom, you're a teacher,
Yeah.
you're a wife, you're a partner, you're a friend, you're a daughter, you're a taxi cab driver, all of the time. And brewing kombucha was something that I did that was purely for myself. And it used my scientific brain and it used my creative brain. And it's just time I set for myself. And a magical thing started to happen is that I just started to trust my instincts more. I started to trust my feelings, how I felt about things. I got a lot more clarity, which was really good because in the next few months, my son was diagnosed with autism. I had some family issues that came up that were really hard. And it gave me sort of the buffer that I needed to sort of take in all of these really extreme situations, things that I didn't really understand. And so really Third Bird is about like taking something that you don't really understand, or maybe you have a preconceived notion about, like whether it's kombucha or autism, and realize that what you think is true isn't actually it. There's lots of different ways. And it's kind of the ethos, I try to live by is like, there's this third way to do something.
Oh, I just got chills. We've never talked about that.
Yes.
Seriously. Because my dad was always like, third solution. What's the third solution? Right? Like it's not one or the other. It can be or there can be a whole other.
Yeah. I love the idea of like, and yet, like the idea of like, you can think of something and yet, what about this? Or, and yet, it sometimes drives my husband nuts because he's like, can you just be right now in the moment? And I'm like, but and yet, which, maybe that's what makes me a good entrepreneur because you're always thinking about.
That's true. Yet. So you were brewing kombucha, and then I love it that you were finding a solution both for Silas, like, you describe your kombucha as not too sweet, not too sour. It's like a nice happy medium. So it's very drinkable, very family friendly. So you're doing this activity. It's kind of filling you up, giving you some space, having that little bit of like personal time.
Yeah.
So good. And then why on earth would you start a business? Crazy lady.
Yeah. Why would I start? I didn't mean to. That's how it happened is I did not mean to. Which is like so many things I like didn't mean to. And then it's here I am. No, I started brewing and then, with any ferment, you just start getting more and more and more of it. And so I started giving it away to friends. And some of my good friends run the Horseshoe Market, Doug and Amy Gateman, and they are some of my favorite humans. And they're like, hey, you should sell at the Horseshoe over the summer. Like I know summers can be hard, like you're coming off of, intense years of teaching, then you're home and you've got the kids, but you've got this, feeling of like, you gotta get everything done. And then it's like, it might be like a nice thing just to like have your own thing. I was like, cool, I can do that. So again, back to research, realizing like I can't just do it from my home.
Yeah.
So I had to like be street legal and get a commissary kitchen, which I did. And I signed my commissary lease in March of 2020. It's a great time because then everything shut down.
Yes.
Super cool. Super cool. And as a public school teacher, it's going to shock you to realize I did not make a lot of money, and so I had to, I wasn't about to have a monthly expense and then not be able to afford, take that from my family. So I just started going door to door essentially with my kombucha and taking it to people and spraying it down with like lights. Remember when I like to spray things with Lysol? Like,
oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, hi, I'm your neighbor.
Where everybody's locked down.
Like, yeah, like I'm really not crazy. I'm not going to give you COVID. I'm like, here you go. Like, I've just brewed this. I just want to know what you think. Just here you go.
Yeah.
And that's how it grew.
Oh my gosh.
From there.
And then you started at farmers markets. And I just learned, you were just telling our group a little bit ago of that you launched under a different name. I love this story. So tell.
Yeah. So I launched in June of 2020. I sold my first bottle. I was like, I got my website up. I got, it was like a very simple website, I had a logo, I had all these things put together. My husband's an artist. He was drawing things out. I bought the stickers for the bottles. I got my cases. That was ready, and I launched. I pressed send out to the universe. I was like, here we go. Waiting for all like the cool emails to pile in all the orders. And instead I got an email from a lawyer in Boulder giving me a cease and desist letter. Saying that their client had rights to the name and I could not use it. Now, there's a lot of arguing about who was right. Like I could have gone down that rabbit hole really easily. That would have been it would have been an easy step to do that and argue for it. Instead, I was like, well, what's my loss? Okay, I lost, tens of hours of my time, and I lost probably like $500 in stickers because that's all I bought, like I didn't have like banners or like I didn't do any of that other stuff. Yeah. And so I was like, okay.
Which is beautiful. That's cool. Why I love you starting out
it's beautiful.
Small.
And
those things happen.
Yeah. And granted, at the time it was detrimental. Like I was like, I can't believe this. This is the worst. What am I going to do? I'm never going to be anything else. If I'm not this name, then what am I? There was a lot of.
And people know I also got a cease and desist. So I've been through it as well. And the crashing of that.
Yeah. It's hard, right? Because like,
it sucks. It's terrible. Yeah. And you're like, I've done all this work and time and money, but you could have quit. I just want to point that out. One option would have been to say, I'm out, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Kept going.
I didn't. And it struck my soul because it's like, as somebody again, reformed, good girl, like dotted my I's, crossed my T's, like, like had the lawyer, like look, she's like, the lawyer's like, yeah, this is crazy talk. Like, and it forced me to sit back and go like, well, what really is this about? Like, what am I doing? What's my why? Why do I care about, like, it's and the name kind of came to me. Actually it didn't. It came, I was working with another coach. I highly, anybody listening, get a coach, get lots of coaches. I had a coach before you who helped me sort of realize like, you do have all of the skills that you need to launch this. So what if you didn't go to business school, or so what if you like worked 2 days, in a restaurant and got fired because you dropped all of the wine glasses all over somebody's head. All of that. Anything about right now, what you can do.
None of that past means anything about your future, right?
And she's like, and that helped. And, and we sat down with, like with the thesaurus, and we were just going through things and just, brainstorming. And I was like, she asked a question. She's like, well, what's this about? I was like, it's about my 3 kids. And she's like, you mean like your 3 birds? And I'm like, oh my God, 3rd bird. And that's how it started. And that's how it happened. And I like my logo better. I like my branding better. It's more so me. Good. It's more authentic. It feels again, we've been able to encapsulate imagery that is appealing to a broad range of people and not just a small subsect.
You have fantastic branding as well. So, okay. So you launched in the middle of a pandemic. I know you did City Park Farmers Market. You were crushing it, right? Like,
yeah.
What happened there?
So again, it was, so I started City Park in 2021. So 2020.
Okay. So that first summer you were just doing door to door.
So first doing door to door, I think I did like 1 horseshoe market. And if you like look at my setup, you'd be like, girl, that is like intense. Like there's a lot. Yeah, not feasible at all. And then I did one, but really it became people just coming up to me and being like, hey, like we go online and your stuff's always sold out. Can we just like have a reoccurring order? So that's how the subscriptions grew. And so we launched that in November of 2020. And then in 2021, Peter and Margot, who run City Park, reached out to me about that they're starting this new farmers market and they're revitalizing it. And I really should think about it. And I said, no. I said, hell no. I can't do it.
I'm teaching school because you're still teaching. Right?
I'm teaching full time. Yeah. I've got 3 kids. The business is out of control. I can't. And they were persistent. They just called me up. Are you sure? Like, we really feel like you're the person. Like, you just need to like, come on. And I'm so happy I listened to them because, you know, I didn't know then what I do now, but it's like, you know, our online sales, like there was a huge spike in online sales through the pandemic. Those slowed in 2021. They're back up again, but they slowed. City Park reminded me once again of like why I was doing it. Because I got to meet people. I got to talk to people. I got to share my story, hear their story, get invaluable feedback from people about what they liked, what they didn't like, what we should do better. Learned about, you know, managing inventory and price points, and learned from other vendors, like, well, what system are you using and what works there? And oh my gosh, why are you using the, you know, QuickBooks free POS? Because you're not collecting any emails, and like you could be having emails and, you know, marketing from these people. I'm like, oh my gosh, so many things you didn't know.
And that's okay. You don't have to know all those things at the beginning.
No,
it's better. You're never going to know everything.
And that's the thing that has been so great about this journey is that you start, I'm reminded that more people are cheering you on and want you to succeed than trying to wish you harm or like trying to tell you what you're doing wrong. And coming from an education background, like, you know, we're used to being like, you know, nudging you to like be better, tell you what answers you got wrong, or like give you a score on this, you know, like that's sort of like, that's the, critique your argument and break it down into its like, you know.
I think education and entrepreneurship are at complete opposite ends. Like one is very prescriptive. There's a right and wrong. Here's the path. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And then entrepreneurship is like, we don't know, just start. And then you're going to figure it out. And your path is going to be like windy and you just have no idea what's going to happen.
You have no idea. And so that, I mean, it's just been so reassuring of just like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I had people who helped me with, you know, with my branding. My friend Greg did. I had my friend Belinda wrote my first SOP before I even knew what SOP stood for. You know, I've got friends now at, you know, Denver, down at the city and county of Denver who've like helped me, you know, figure out all of my licensing requirements and this. I remember talking to you before I ever hired you, being like, so, you know, like you could, you know, get a waiver for nutrition labels. And I was like, tell me more. Like they were just like bits of information that like people bestowed upon me, and just being curious and just being like, I don't know, so I'm going to ask lots of questions all of the time.
Curiosity, willingness to be wrong, willingness to just ask for help, ask people for ideas. Don't make it mean anything about you.
No, it doesn't. And in fact, like I'm like, I'd rather know now. I'd rather like, you know, ask the dumb question now than like to like have it cost me later, you know. It's like, oh my God, like this didn't work, and there's so many of those like moments where you're just like, oh, I didn't check this, or I didn't ask about this, and then you're kind of stuck and you're like, oh.
And you're still going to have plenty of those moments, but you might as well try to alleviate some of them.
Yeah, right.
You also can't have it paralyze you and be like, I have to know everything before I take a next step. So there's a balance there, but trying to use your network.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you and me have talked about this a lot, about the idea, you know, what does it mean to be, you know, very, like ruthlessly, fearlessly persistent on what we prioritize, you know, like there's so much you can get done, but there's only so many hours in the day. So like, what is it you choose spend your time on? And what do you choose to say, hey, this is going to be C+ work.
Right.
It's going to be okay. Let that go. And then how then you communicate that now to my staff, like what's really important. And like the things I needed to know a month ago are not the things I need to know today. They're very different, actually. And so thinking that I needed to know everything before I started, I would never have started.
Right. And that's a big thing that I feel like coaching or what I offer is like, I mean, there's times where I'm literally like, stop, do not, like, we're going to put that on a list somewhere and we do not need to talk about that for another 6 months, because I think sometimes it's easy to just be like, well, somebody told me I need to think about da, 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 da. And you're like, yeah, you do, but not now. Like, and it's taking up space in your brain. So let's get it off, like helping you discern what's priority and what you're going to focus on, because we all have limited time, limited resources. So good. So I love that you decided that you were like, I'm going to replace my salary as a teacher and make this my thing. I mean, I kind of just want to know, like, what was entrepreneurship giving you? Because you layered on something else. We know what kombucha was giving you, but now you're like, I'm going to be a crazy entrepreneur, give away my whole summer as a teacher and do this crazy thing.
Yeah.
And then also have teaching. So like, what was the pull? Why did you like entrepreneurship?
I think it's just crazy enough, honestly. Like it is. It's something where it's like, I've learned like the only risk that's not worth it, the only risk that's bad is the one you don't actually take. Like figure out, like take the leap, see what happens. It's very much, at least for me, a scientific process, right? Like I do something, I take some sort of action. I like look at the what happens. I look at the data and I try it again. Like, and then you just keep kind of like spinning this wheel, and like this, they call it the fly rod, or like, what does Jim Collins call it? Like the flywheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked that. And I liked, I liked being able to go to the bathroom on my own time. That actually took me a lot to get used to, like actually like not having to like plan my life by a bell. Like that was very hard.
I remember that.
Oh, that's very hard. I also liked that at the end of the day, however crazy, however beautiful, however messy, whatever came at the end of every day, it was something that I did. It was something that I could own and I could say, yep, this is like, I could have complete and utter ownership of it. And I liked that. I liked knowing that I was responsible for, creating something that had never been created before in this day. And that it was making the world, my little world slightly better. I love
that so much. You were the, you're the captain of your ship and you are directing it for better or for worse, and the crap days and the good days.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly too, it's just also like you start to learn, like, you're like, well, you live once, right? Well, actually, I take that back. I just saw a really good quote thing. It's like, you live every day, but you only die once. So, right. So you live every day. And it's, I've become more of like what's serving me and what's not serving me. What do I need right now? What do I not need? Like we were talking about this the other day, like, will I do kombucha for the rest of my life? I don't know.
But we were talking about your big future why.
My big future, my big why. I might not be. But I've learned that what I've gained from this and continue to gain from this experience is like, I have the skills and I've got the network and I've got the curiosity and the knack and the persistence. The
resilience.
And just make something from nothing, which is a great model for my kids to see, like they're able to say, wow, mom built this in like a really short amount of time. Like, that's pretty cool.
You
And like,
did.
she's doing this with like out any outside investors, or like, I 100% on the company. So,
Yeah. And I like to say, I mean, there's no better here than there. I mean, I didn't know you when you were a teacher. I can only imagine your like, I don't know, your aura or your like energy then, because I've seen some evolution just even over the last year and a half or so since I've known you. But I mean, it's not like you didn't have problems as a teacher, even though you had a steady salary, right? Like, there's still relationship issues. There's still family. There's still craziness. You just have like, now you have new drama over here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, but it's also like, I get to choose it. Right. And like, I get to choose what it looks like. It was hard to leave a profession that like, I have a multiple like advanced degrees, I have a master's degree. I pictured myself in the classroom for a long time for, that was going to be it. And to leave that was hard. And to imagine something different was challenging.
We're creating a future slowly. We don't do it overnight. Usually our whole identity. No. I mean, your whole identity shifted from a teacher to an entrepreneur. And so when did you make that shift? And tell us about that.
I think COVID really helped on some ways because of having to figure out how to do online teaching. And I was teaching science, and like, how do you teach science, which is so hands-on remotely? And how do you find innovative solutions that don't make sense? So like we put together science kits for all of our students, and like for every single unit, and like got them delivered out, and like figuring out like, pickup spots for people to get them. And I mean, which was no small feat because my school had like 600 kids for grade. And, it was realizing, when I got that cease and desist letter, being like, that's not going to deter me, actually. Like, okay, that sucks. And now what? It's realizing, when I first, back in 2020, I did apply to farmers markets, and I didn't get in because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to apply. I was just like, I'm this girl who's got kombucha. And like, of course, like, people are like, no, sorry. Like, we're also in a global pandemic. We don't know, what it's going to look like. It's also just trusting that like, it's going to work out. And so I think once those things started to hit together, I had a better idea. I mean, it also helped that like I talked to my financial planner and like did all the, all those pieces. And, when my principal asked me to teach more for this coming up school year, I just said, actually, no. And people tell me all the time, they're like, you always can go back to teaching. It's always there. And I'm like, I actually don't think it is for me. I think there's other things that I'm going to do.
Right.
Because now,
it's helpful to think, well, worst case scenario, I go back to teaching. I mean, they would have me back in a heartbeat, right? Like, worst case scenario, I have a teaching job. I can go back.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you would, even if this didn't work out, you might do something completely different, which is so freeing, right? Like,
well, it's also so freeing to realize that, like, you have so many more, every one of us has the capacity to learn so many different things and to be able to figure them out. And the things that I now know that I didn't know before, it's incredible. And I'm like, okay, like, who would have thought that I could, figure out plumbing for bright tanks and electrical for labeling machines, and in the same breath, be learning about, SEO optimization and like, how, the various supply chains, and like, it's crazy.
I love it so much. So you left teaching in fall of 2022.
Yeah.
Right? Or no, fall of 21. We're not in fall.
No, this is what year are we in? No,
You're in
2021.
2022. So
Yeah,
this is crazy.
2021.
It's a
Yes.
shorter
Yeah. So I
timeline
left.
than I realized.
I
So
know. Do you ever
21.
find yourself though going like, oh, it's like 2002? Because like in my brain, that's where we're actually. I'm like, wait, what?
I know. I did a study abroad in Paris in 2000. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it was like a couple years ago. And then I'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, actually.
Oh, wait. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
22 years
Yeah.
ago, I did a study
Uh-huh.
abroad. Yeah. So you got a new facility, you were outgrowing, you were going gangbusters at
Yep.
the market, you have these subscriptions, you're like, okay, it's going well enough that I'm gonna take a jump and quit the teaching job. And then so that's fall of 21. So I'm so
And
curious. We started working together, or we started talking.
we started talking early 2022, like the end of 21 into 22, we started talking because the end of 21, I found our facility. So I had been looking for a facility for a while, just because, again, I'm working in a commercial kitchen with food trucks and, caterers, which again, learned so many things about. But here I am like pushing, like 55-gallon drums behind people with, like who are deep frying and like, making huge stews. And I'm like, this is not safe at all. Like, this is not great. And like,
but
no, you do, you get through it, you figure things out, but it was not an ideal situation. And, trying to problem solve, refrigeration was my problem. Like that was my bottleneck. And how do I solve for that? And what do you need to do? And so I had gone and looked at a bunch of different places to rent, trying to find them. And it was just really hard. Denver right now is just insane. And it was hard for me to go into like another commissary because kombucha, again, people have a hard time with understanding any sort of ferment. But again, I think it comes down to just being willing just to talk your story constantly to people. And I found out that Johnson & Wales, which is right by my house, was closing down. The kitchen network was purchasing it, which I was like, awesome. I'm going to get into one of those kitchens. And so I just kept calling them up, being like, hey, here I am. Like, hey, we're not ready. We'll let you know. And once they were ready, I went to go tour it. It's a beautiful facility. You all should go check it out. It wouldn't work for me. And they said, hey, actually, we just closed down our bottling facility. You should go check it out. And I was kind of sour about it because it was across town and I didn't want to drive across town. And it was perfect. Like it had everything we needed. And it was already licensed and it was already permitted. And it was like, it had a walk-in refrigerator and a kettle. And my landlords are like just amazing people who like just want to do good by the world. And it's just, I walk in and I'm just like,
the nest, as you call it.
my nest. It's so great. And so we're just working on that. And so, yeah, I quit my job, had a few months of like, I wouldn't even call it calmness, which is like finishing up farmers. And then it was moving. And then it's like, okay, how do you scale this?
Yeah. So tell me about, besides, I know I'm more helping you with your website and some other emails and things like that, but what made you reach out again? Because we talked a while ago. And so what was the impetus there? Like, why did you feel like you needed coaching?
I think for me, it's, it was recognizing the role of, because I had just, my coaching relationship with my prior coach was coming to an end. It's realizing that there's an accountability piece that's really important. It's one thing to say that you're going to do it, but then having somebody to like hold you to like, did you actually do it? For me, having that routine was really important. It was like, I don't know where I am. I'm going to make sure I can get on my computer. Like this is happening. These times are very sacred. And it is a mix of like therapy, like, let me tell you all the things, like, let me just download. And then you just saying, okay, like, going through all of the, like, almost like a sieve, and like, what are the big rocks? What's the thing that's sticking out that we'll focus on?
Yeah.
And most of the time the rock wasn't actually what I thought it was. Like, I thought it was something totally different. And you're like, oh, have you thought about, the fact that, your farmer's market display is actually like could be improved upon, not all these other things. And I'm like, oh,
how about we just improve sales here?
Or like, what about if you like, when you're looking at like hiring, and it's just like, okay, instead of thinking like putting the cart before the horse, like, how about you think about all of the different things that you might need and what, like, figure out the times. The nice thing too is that like you already had so many of these it wasn't like we were recreating the wheel. It's almost like you've done this before. So it was nice just to be like, oh, okay, like I can just take this and like figure out like, how does this fit? And like, oh, okay, like this is the next step that I need to take. And it was like pretty, I mean, you have shepherded me through like a pretty gnarly season. Like, starting a business is no joke, but I think starting a business is infinitely easier than scaling a business.
Yeah.
Because scaling a business, it's all of a sudden like, oh, this is real. Like, oh, I've got like rent, like real, like a rent to pay. And I've got like, taxes, and I've got, things
employees.
That are like,
I mean, you start bringing on employees.
And I gotta like raise, I mean, this is the first time like I'm like figuring out like how to raise money and like how to keep my systems in order and like communicating to people. And like, it's my job has shifted so dramatically. Yes. Like my role has shifted so dramatically. And having somebody who has helped sort of get me out of the nitty gritty and pull me back out to see sort of the forest has been really helpful.
Yeah. So good. Because it is about, I think when you start, you have to wear all the hats and you're figuring it all out. And I want people to do that. Like, that is part of the process, getting you're in it. Like, you're up to your eyeballs in kombucha and all the things.
Literally.
But yeah, to keep growing into ultimately, I'm not saying that you couldn't just stay at farmers markets and, have a great little business, but I think what you were wanting is something bigger. And so you were going after bigger things, and you get to this point where you're like, I need help getting to the next level. Like, I've sort of exhausted the tools of Google and some of my networks and things like now I need real help. And it is a shift of the doer and brewer to a CEO, right? Like, we talk about that. Like, I'm putting on my CEO role and stepping into, we can call it head flock something. I don't know. We don't have to call it CEO.
Yeah. I don't know what it's going to be, but yeah, like the head bird, the head chick. I don't know what I'm going to be, but
it is. Want to transition your title, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. You are identifying still as the doer and brewer of all things, and you are in transition.
Yeah, it is. It's been an interesting transition. It's, it's again, like learning how to set the expectation. And anytime you set an expectation, it's an expectation for both yourself and then for the person who you're setting it for, and then it's like, okay, I told this person, like, this is what is getting done for the week, or this is what your job description is. And then it's just like learning to, provide the tools and the resources and the mentorship. But then at the end of the day, it's like, they've got to do it or not do it. And learning to recognize, like, I hired people so I wouldn't have to do the work.
Yeah.
And being okay with that and being like, okay, they're going to do it in their way, or they're going to do it with their style or their finesse or with their speed sometimes, and
we talk about your employees are only ever going to be 50% as good as you. Like, so that's just going with that baseline, and that's on a good day. So
That's on a good day. And that's on a day where it's like, okay, but it's again, like my job now is, and it came up today is like, okay, my job really is like, what's the vision? And like, keep bringing it back to like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the point? Like, what's the point in the flavors we choose? What's the point in the message we bring? What's the point in the fact that we're in bottles and not in cans? What's the point of, us having, like, doing any of the other things that, to people who it doesn't make sense. Because there's a reason. And reminding people of like, this is why you're doing this. It's like setting the course, and it's giving, and then it's finding like, it's being the first one out. It's like charting that territory of where we're going and keeping people engaged and feeling validated and motivated to want to show up every single day to do the work.
So good. Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about hiring and that kind of work. And I love what you said about accountability, and I think scheduling too, because I mean, literally your life revolved around bells that told you exactly where to be. And
bells.
And now you're an entrepreneur and you're like, there's this expansiveness of time, but also all of these crises coming up all the time. And then are you working in your business or on your business, right? So you're always in the crisis, and then the real things that need to happen to move your business forward aren't getting done. So I think a coach can be very helpful in helping you figure out priorities and how do you use your time and creating accountability for that.
It's hard because I think in the beginning you spend, or at least I spent very much a lot of time like on my business. Like, why am I doing this? Like, what's my why? Like, it's not the product. Nothing's our product, right? Like, there's more to it than that, like what's the thing that sparks you and gets you up, And so I spent a lot of time fleshing that out and figuring out my story, which I think
and that was before you ever had a product,
because that's like your pillar. That's before I ever had a product.
Yeah. Of course, you had all the time in the world to, in theory.
Like I had a product, like I didn't have anything more. But like I didn't have but I didn't have anything else to it, And then then you get into it, and then like all you're doing is like you're working in the business. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh wait, like I'm growing, like there's some bottleneck. There's something that stops you in your tracks, and something that says, what, like, you think you're doing okay, like get your head back up. What is it? For me, it was refrigeration. It was trying to figure out, there was just not enough refrigeration for my product. And I didn't have the funds. I couldn't figure it out. Just the way we were doing things, the logistics, the management, that's how it all kind of came. And that's what eventually led us to our new space.
Yeah.
And
then you had all the space in the world. And then you decided, I'm going to do 8 farmers markets?
5.
Okay.
5. Yeah.
So 5. You went from 1.
5 and some events. Yeah. 5 and some events. So it's been a lot. And like some big ones, right? Like some city parks still, Boulder has been great, and Longmont. We're in Central Park over in the Central Park neighborhood, just north of us. And then Arvada, which has been super fun. So, learning the logistics.
But then some have multiple days. So you also were like, oh crap, okay, we're growing. Like now we have kombucha or close. You also had to get tanks, but
we need to have kombucha, right?
Yeah, we should have, in theory, a lot more kombucha. Let's go sell. Like now I'm ready to go sell, but I can't do this by myself, right? So now you're no longer a one-woman show if you're going to really scale it. So a lot of the work we did together, not all, but a good chunk was around hiring, creating some foundations and systems, processes, things like that. So where are you at?
I think I had been really fortunate in the very beginning of like having people to sort of like show up and like help. And like I had 2 women who drove for me, and they were great. And that kind of happened. And this, but once you start, but that worked when you were small, right? Like, and then once you start to scale, and once you start realizing like, oh, these people are going to be speaking for the business, or they're going to be interacting with customers or with vendors or with, my subleasers, because I also sublease part of my business, part of our space as well. You have to get really clear with what type of people you're bringing in. Like, it's not just having a body. It's like, who's somebody who like understands our values, understands what we're trying to do, who gets jazzed by that, and understands like what it is. Because again, like the skills I can teach you, or I can find somebody who can teach you, like I can, I'm learning it along with you. So you have to have somebody, finding the people who are okay with, the ambiguity or the startup culture, and have a sense of willingness to try, or, can be, take initiative, like, and how do you measure, like, how do you interview for taking initiative, and how do you really quantify that and like make that a thing? And, I was so hesitant about hiring because all I heard was just like horror stories about like, oh, it's so hard out there. There's nobody good. Like, you're not going to find anybody, or, and it's like you drive past, the grocery store and they're offering like $22 an hour plus benefits. And I'm like, I should go work there. Why? Like, it's just like, it's crazy. So it's like and then it's like another can, like another bucket that I'm now like carrying. It's like, oh, now it's like HR stuff. And so, but you can't do it alone. And so it was really helpful for just to think through of like all of the different things that I do. Like, what does it mean to really be the doer and the brewer? And like, what are all, even down to like the minutia things, like, and just started thinking through like, okay, what is it I do? What are the things that like I could easily like outsource to somebody else, like get a bookkeeper and outsource that. Like, I do not need to be anymore. Great. Awesome. But then what are the things that make sense to have in-house, and what would that job title start to look like? And how many, like literally, I think you and I put down like how many hours it was for every single activity. And like, is this a full-time job? Is this a part-time job?
Right.
Like, what does this start to look like? And then once I had that, it's like, okay, I know what I need, in terms of like a job description, but like, what type of person do I need?
Yeah. Ultimately, we wanted to hire on your culture as well. And, we won't get into the weeds on this, but you had a couple of guys that were helping you out and you had high hopes for them, but you didn't do any of this work ahead of time. And then you come in and you just have expectations, right? Of like, just do it like I would do it. Right?
Or just do it. Like, I don't even care what you do. I'm like, just do it. Or like, ask a question, or like, and you start recognizing like the things that are so, I think, innate in me, and like people who are entrepreneurs, or even people who are teachers. Like, we ask a lot of questions. We want to understand. And I didn't hire for that. I hired for, I need help. Just come in.
Right. And then I just need a body, which, I mean, ultimately, I'm just curious, would you have rather not have had the body? Like, looking back, do you think it was good that you had him?
I'd rather not have had the body. No, I wouldn't.
It was so
I think
exhausting. And there was so much work you had to go back and do. And
there was just a lot of, and granted, I wouldn't have the people I have now if it wasn't for those experiences, and like, they wouldn't be available, and like all the things. But again, it was, like, I got into this position with like one where I was like, he needs to go. Like, I just need him out. But then it's like, oh, but like, he is a body and he is helping, and it is releasing some, pressure on, like my relationship with my husband. Cause like if it wasn't him, it was going to be my husband, and he's got a full-time job, as well. And it's like, we can't work 24 hours a day,
right,
as much as I think we should. That doesn't work. And so, no, don't do it. It's terrible.
And I would never suggest that it was a bad or it was a worthless experience at all, because you learned a lot from it.
Yeah. And it's just, it's learned, and it's just like trust when it's like, don't keep the people. If it's not working, it's just not working. And that's okay. It has nothing to do with you. You don't have to own that. You can just say, hey, right now in this process. So I've gotten really good at having tough conversations with people and just being like, yeah, they might be upset. And also like, they're going to find something that they're better suited for, like
you're not doing anybody any favors by keeping somebody on that isn't a good fit, like kind candor, better just to cut it there and have them move on and move on. But now we have a framework and we have tools because what we want to do when we hire is fail fast or succeed fast. Like we want to put it under pressure a little bit to see, but with clear expectations and things set up ahead of time. I like tell you people can't read your mind unless you put it down on paper. So they can if you put it on paper.
Yeah. And be also willing, like, something that's, I've been learning to do is like, hey, like this was on your list, like, for today or for this week and it didn't get done. Why? Yeah. And just let it be.
And it's interesting. I've seen a lot of growth in you. Would you agree from when we first started working together and you were really scared about having some of these conversations and setting boundaries? And now you're like, I'm setting boundaries.
I know. Well, I think also like, again, coming from, I didn't really have great role models of what leadership could look like, right? Like I had, very much leadership that was based on like scarcity and based on power and like, I will like fear essentially, and like a little bit of bullying tactics. And I didn't know what my leadership style was going to be. I think I swung too far the opposite where I was like, just get the work done. I'm cool.
Yeah. I just want to be the cool boss.
You know what? I'm not cool. I'm actually not a cool person. I'm not a cool person. It's like when people are like, oh, I'm so laid back. I'm like, I'm not. I wish I was. I'm not. And so like calibrating like what my expectations are and like where I fall and like, I can have very high expectations of you. I have very high expectations of myself. And I want you to also then ruthlessly prioritize, like what's the most important thing, at the end of the day, what is it for each member of the team? It always comes down to like brewing the best tasting kombucha. And that might look different for like every single person, at the end of the day, what they're getting done. Yeah. And just holding people accountable, giving them enough space to innovate, enough space to say, hey, I see this way you're doing things. I think we could do it this way and do it differently, and being like, cool, that works. And trying to model, your values of being, authentic and balanced and innovative and, being willing to say, hey, like I'm out of like, I haven't had good balance. Like before, a few weeks ago, like I was like, May was really tough. Like it's the end of school. It's, we're like in now all 5 farmers markets. It's, bringing on 2 new people. Like it was a lot. And I was working on.
Yeah. And there was some rough days, and thank goodness for your husband. And yeah,
I was out of balance. Rough. It was very, very rough. There was a lot of tears, and and so to recognize like, okay, like you can only be so good.
And we kept saying like, we're going to get through this. Like you're in this pretty rough transition. You're bringing on new people. You end up hiring 3 people. You're training them. Like it takes a lot to train. You have to plan, hours for every hour of knowledge you have. It's going to take you a lot longer to train somebody. Mm-hmm. And so you have to plan in that. And we were doing it all at once. And we just knew it was going to be a little bit of a cluster.
It was painful. And it hurt, like there's a bit of like, oh my gosh, like that first like time I ran payroll, I was like,
yeah, it makes you want to vomit. Yes.
Like what? Okay. yeah, it makes you want to vomit. And like, I still like, I'm like, okay, that makes me want to vomit a little bit. Like, can I do this? Like, but I took my first vacation with
I
my family.
know that was a really big step.
And I was able to like leave my nest and go out and do something, which,
And it did not fall apart.
and leave people, and they did great, and they did awesome. And I didn't need there to oversee all of the little things anymore. And that felt really refreshing. And it's nice to be able to then be able to then come back and be like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, you're starting to get the benefits now of the hiring.
yeah. But it's also like, it's like, okay, now I can like a benefits of hiring, but also like get back to like what we were saying earlier about like thinking like, what does it mean to be a CEO? Like, what does that look like? Like I can come back in and be like, oh, I now do have like the mental headspace to think about these, explore these different ideas that I've had and like how to bring them into fruition. And I do have now, like, I do see what my role actually needs to be and how does that take things away, and really just craft, like, it's not just, selling the brand out to to the public. It's like keeping like that internal brand and like keeping that really strong and alive, and like, why is this important, and really connecting that. So it's a fun place to be. It feels nice.
I feel like hopefully you're able to at least be like, okay, I'm in this place, I'm enjoying the journey. And you're going to, years from now, you're going to look back at you with this person and be like, that was so cute. Remember?
Yeah. Like that was so funny. Like what, why did I think you said it best. You were like, you just took a whole elephant down in like a month. And I'm like, quit a job, moved to a huge facility, take on like all these, because it's not just like, moving to a facility. Now I'm like, a property manager for 2 other businesses. So like making sure their stuff's all in order, like hiring people, like, yeah.
Negotiating
we don't go
leases,
smaller.
all these things. It's amazing.
All the things.
I'm so glad that you gave yourself the gift of getting a coach to help you work through those things, because it's been a pleasure for me to work with you, and can't wait. You haven't gotten rid of me yet, but
no, you haven't gotten rid of me yet. That is, that's definitely not going to happen, So, yeah, you make me better.
You are a better person. You were always a great person, but you are a better entrepreneur. And I just love entrepreneurship, that it gives you so much opportunity to grow as a person. Like this is your vehicle for evolving and for contributing.
And who knew? So it's been really great. And, and like learning to bring people on and understanding that, like, yeah, being a boss, like that's really like you, like taking on some of those coaching roles and in leadership and figuring out like, oh, years from now, they're going to look like, oh, I want to be like this boss or not like this boss. I know.
You're going to be coaching others soon enough.
Yeah, it's cool. So I feel good,
I love it. What is your future statement? Did you craft like that we talked about the other day?
I've been like plugging around at it, and I don't know if I've landed on anything quite yet, but I like this idea of, how do you redefine like work and workspaces for people? And, part of the vision of being in the nest is that it is a space where like each business is bringing something unique and we're building something new. And I do see this kind of as like the next sort of evolution of Third Bird, is like having a space where small beverage companies can come in and like use our space, but also use like our resources that we have available, whether that is, helping with like shipping and purchasing of items and ingredients, like helping with whatever, like marketing and media, and helping with some of these like sort of ins and outs components. And then how do you give people the space to create and innovate and make a product that they're really proud of, and they're really proud of themselves, without hustling so much, like I think when we get into the hustle mindset, I think this is another great thing about having a coach, is that you constantly reminded me that like I'm enough, and this, like, don't worry about all the negative self-talk. Like, the moment you start thinking that you need to hustle or you need to sell or you need to do this, then it becomes harder.
Yeah.
But if you just believe that you are enough, you live in a world of plenty, and these things will work out, because it's a game changer.
So good. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a great place to wrap it up. I love that. Did you name, it actually, when you were talking, it made me realize, like, you named this Third Bird Collective.
Yeah, we're a collective.
And hearing that vision, I'm like, hello, you named this perfectly, whether you knew it or not.
I know. So that's actually my LLC. Well, yeah. So there was like there was a time there where I was like, oh my God, I can't like rent a building. Like, I should just buy a building, and I'll like I'll create Third Bird as like a nonprofit. And like, I always had different ideas. Turns out I could not buy a building, but still a great idea. Maybe someday. It's like the someday thing. But yeah, it is. It's this idea, like, there's so many.
And doesn't mean it can't happen. There's no rush.
It's just not a right now moment, it's just not right now. It's been down the line. But I do think that there's space for people, like, like people who do want to keep things more in-house, people like who are doing, who are making a product that isn't served in being in like a traditional commissary kitchen. And there's quite a few. And it's hard, like, and unless you have connections or unique space, or like you have, like, know somebody, or like you just have lots and lots of money. That always helps.
Amazing. Sarah, tell people where they can find you. You mostly just your products are available in Colorado, Denver, Boulder area, but tell people where they can find you if they want to look you up.
So the best place to find us is online at thirdbirdcollective.com. So that's the number 3 rdbirdcollective.com. Or you can come visit us. We're at City Park Farmers Market, Boulder, Longmont, Arvada, and Central Park on the weekends. Or we're located at a bunch of different coffee shops and breweries around the Denver metro area, which are all listed online for you.
And the Instagram, is that Third Bird?
Third Bird Kombucha is our Instagram. Come check us out, and we'd love to serve you and your flock.
I love it. Thanks so much, Sarah, for your time. This has been really fun.
It's been good. I like it.
You'll have to come back and listen to this when you need a little pick-me-up, when you're remembering why you're doing all this. It was so good.
Thank you.
Oh, I hope you guys got so much from that. Sarah had so many good nuggets of inspiration, and how coaching has really changed her business and helped her to feel more confident and step into being the leader of Third Bird Collective and Third Bird Kombucha. If you are curious about what one-on-one coaching would look like and how that could help you, I want to encourage you to go over to foodbizsuccess.com. I have reworked the website, and you really just have 2 choices. You can either join Food Business Success, or you can explore one-on-one coaching. I have found coaching to be the key to my success personally, and it has transformed many business founders' relationship with their business and helping them to get more done, to get to that next level, to put themselves out there and really develop systems and foundations to help you be strong as you grow. And that accountability piece, working on your mindset and helping you overcome that negative self-talk that slows all of us down. Coaching is so valuable. And if this resonated with you, I want to encourage you to take the next step. Go over to foodbizsuccess.com. Until next time, have an amazing week. Are you ready to start that delicious idea that you make in your home kitchen, or grow your existing packaged food business and take it to the next level? The most successful food business entrepreneurs have support, guidance, focus, and accountability to help them make it happen quickly without wasting time or money. Plus, I think starting your packaged food business should actually be fun. Food business success is your secret ingredient to creating your food business dream. Please don't go this alone. Check out the private free Food Business Success Facebook group to connect with other foodpreneurs, get your questions answered quickly, share your wins, and receive special training and tools I only share inside the private community. Just search for Food Business Success on Facebook or get the link in the show notes. Curious about how Food Business Success can help you? Head over to foodbizsuccess.com and fill out the application to see if you're a great fit for the program. Together, let's make your food business dream a reality.